Everything I do, I try to maximize habit stacking. So I have to think less. So from what I wear to my daily routine, I do exactly the same thing almost every day, and so because of that, the way I look at it is the more I habit stack, the less I have to think, and the more that frees up my brain for coming up with creative ideas, doing something innovative, being more strategic, because now I can focus my energy on those things that are value added versus everyday habits that are just routines that don't add any value to my life. So
unfortunately, most men don't ever think about it or admit it, but men in general, by and large, 80-90% are habitual. And they like routines and they like habit. Like they like that. They're predictable. Men are very predictable. Most men, 90-80% of men are very predictable. Women will argue that men can't multitask, and women will argue that they can multitask. Now, scientifically, you can't multitask. Whether you're a woman or not, there's no such thing. But for some reason, we can all admit women, for some reason, can be multifunctional. For some reason, they can
do lots of fractional tasks at the same time much more effectively than men.
Even though scientifically it shouldn't happen, it does. But what I will say is that men diminish the fact that that's their strength, is they can Pareto principle onto one task at a time and become so hyper focused and obsessed with it. And when you do that time and time again, it's been proven thousands of years, that's where success comes from. But by and large, if whatever makes you happy, do it. Because if it doesn't make you happy and you're not honest with yourself, then you're going to be miserable no matter who you are, no matter what hierarchy or gender role you fit into.
Of all of the intimate relationships you have in your life, your spouse is the only one you can choose. So choose wisely.
Holy crap. What can I do to get better and increase my value? Right? And because you brought that up earlier, value. What can I do to increase my value? And since we're specifically talking about a man getting a baddie, right? Or getting a good girl or a good wife or a good girlfriend, whatever it is that you're desiring, because that's such a huge thing today for a lot of men. Why would they want to date you? Because men are so obsessed right now. What do you bring to the table? And they should be asking that question. Obviously, if you don't get up in the morning,
aggression,
and have this insatiable hunger to just hunt, kill, just build, attack, or get after something, then something's wrong with you. California, which is notoriously the highest tax state, the most expensive state for utilities, taxes, you name it, a lot, is broke. Again, facing its second or third straight year of deficit in the 20 billion plus range. It is teetering on the brink of recession.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really hurts me to talk about California in this way, considering the fact that I've lived here my entire life. When you look at politically motivated policies and you have such a large population, those two don't work at scale. I'm telling you that in order for us to fix this problem, that we're going to have to suffer a bit, because you can't have your cake and eat it too and be prosperous and be in a surplus. Those things just don't coincide. People who don't feel the pain directly, they don't use empathy in their voting practices.
So speaking of, entertainment, obviously Hollywood once was entertainment. I mean, it's interesting to see how that has completely evaporated. I looked up a sign from 1999, 2000 of Netflix's original webpage. It's so funny. We got to put that. It's so funny looking, right? It's crazy to see that, right? And to see that evolve and that change, and now to see Netflix is the juggernaut of the media world, right? Killing everybody. If you don't have enough to be pissed off about, over the weekend, the Department of Justice starts hiding files that it released previously for the Epstein stuff. And then they put out this horse shit of, for the safety of something. It's always the safety crap.
You redact
and it's like
117 pages.
Oh, dude. I'm like,
completely redacted.
And I'm sitting here and I'm going, Trump,
it's
please.
A joke.
Trump, please, for the love of God, you're I like, Trump, please, I'm rooting for you. And I'm in your camp like 90% still, like 80%, even though Len hates that. And I'm like, if I was an advisor to Trump, I don't know if I'd get fired. The only thing I can tell you right now, and it's just my gut, is I'm sitting here and I'm looking at this and I'm going, it's making it way too easy for Ron DeSantis to come in. And here's why. Because Ron DeSantis is going to give you all the things you like about Trump, but he's going to give you all the things that you want, Len, which is the cool, the calm, the collected, the polished, the candor. You're going to get all that. And he is going to bring down that balance that you're not seeing right now. And I wouldn't be surprised if that base goes.
Taking L's, man. The one thing that all of us as human beings have in common is how we take care of our bodies is going to impact our longevity and our vitality.
And the thing is it's never too late until it's too late, right? Because after the age of 30, you lose about 3 to 8% of your muscle mass per decade. Mm-hmm. Muscle strength in age, as you age, lean muscle strength is a good indicator of insulation for your body or adaptability for your body and longevity for your body.
Welcome to the Family Office. Planning for the people who matter most.
Is when you're I think maybe when you're growing or you're transitioning or you're in a period of growth somewhere or you're growing somewhere, and then all of a sudden you get a juxtapose where the old world comes back in to sneak a peek at you for a little bit, and you're like, wait a minute, and this could happen in so many different. I don't know if I'm tracking with you or not. I'm just kind of giving you my perspective since you made the comment. And in that, maybe in your perspective, it's like your life and your habits have changed a certain way with maybe your spouse and the way kids are no longer in the house. And then all of a sudden it congeals back and you're going, wait a minute, I think I'm tracking with you anyways. You're like, what?
I'm definitely used to routines, man, because I would say, once I read that book, The Power of Habit and Atomic Habits, everything I do, I try to maximize habit stacking. So I have to think less. So from what I wear to my daily routine, I do exactly the same thing almost every day, and so because of that, the way I look at it is the more I habit stack, the less I have to think, and the more that frees up my brain for coming up with creative ideas, doing something innovative, being more strategic, because now I can focus my energy on those things that are value added versus everyday habits that are just routines that don't add any value to my life. But that's also value because those things I have to do. I have to shower. I have to work out. I have to, all of the things that I need to take care of routine wise. I have to do those things. I don't want to think about what I'm going to wear on the day of. I want to get that done the day before. So when I wake up, I just snap right into it and then I get started with my day. So, I've really been very intentional about regimenting my day to the greatest extent possible.
Well, unfortunately, most men don't ever think about it or admit it, but men in general, by and large, 80, 90% are habitual. And they like routines and they like habit. Like they like that. They're predictable. Men are very predictable. Most men, 90, 80% of men are very predictable. And that's what brings them a lot of peace. I think it's when men try to fight that and they don't want to accept that. It's like, that's when they get conflict, but you're absolutely right. It answers the almost paradoxical question of when you sit there and you go, I don't understand how I'm able to do all the stuff that I do today versus like 10 years thinking about going, oh my God, how am I going to do it? And yes, you're getting better at chunking and you're getting better at being able to, I guess it's almost like lifting weights in a sense where, two 25-pound plates and a bench press used to be difficult, but now because you do reps and you're working out for it, 2 is your difficult number, and 2 on each side. Same respects to your mental fitness when you start to grow as a man or as a human being. I mean, it's not just captive to one gender. Obviously, women can do the same exact. Women do the same exact thing, but men are more habitual than women by far. Eventually, what ends up happening, I think, is that things that you start habit stacking and you start preparing more, and all of a sudden, things are systemized for you and become habitual. If you set up routines, you start to realize how efficient you can become. Women will argue that men can't multitask, and women will argue that they can multitask. Now, scientifically, you can't multitask. Whether you're a woman or not, there's no such thing. But for some reason, we can all admit women, for some reason, can be multifunctional. For some reason, they can
do lots of fractional tasks at the same time much more effectively than men.
Even though scientifically it shouldn't happen, it does. But what I will say is that men diminish the fact that that's their strength, is they can Pareto principle onto one task at a time and become so hyper focused and obsessed with it. And when you do that time and time again, it's been proven thousands of years, that's where success comes from. When a man can put his signal on something, it's going to happen. If the problem for men is Samson syndrome. It's very easy for men to get distracted and go zzz, zzz, zzz. And that's the role, I think, of a good spouse or a good life partner. A woman knows how to femininely balance a man down back into the ability to become softer again, and then to not explode into a billion pieces. And that's why a lot of men today are exploding into billions of pieces, because they don't have a house or can't afford a house to go into. And I know we talked about this, and they can't get a woman that's going to be like in what their brain is. And we talked a little bit about this. I love it. These guys are doing coffee dates now with women. And I think it's great, because I think men are absolutely getting sick and tired of a lot of the stuff that happens. And by the way, men, you are not alone either in this. There's a lot of work that men have to do, but there's a lot of work that I think both sides need to do, and they need to realize it. But by and large, if whatever makes you happy, do it. Because if it doesn't make you happy and you're not honest with yourself, then you're going to be miserable no matter who you are, no matter what hierarchy or gender role you fit into. But if you don't own it 100% and aren't confident with it, you're just going to be miserable. But do what makes you happy. But still, by and large, 80% of people desire to be married, have a steady relationship, live in a safe neighborhood, raise some children, have a house, domicile, have a dog, grow some stuff, take care of some stuff, have equity in something, and feel like they're giving back and go to church. And that's really, by and large, is still the recipe to solve majority of people's wants and needs. And I think people just aren't honest today, and they don't want to admit that, Len. And that's why there's a lot of people that are depressed today or confused. I don't know what it is.
Yeah. I mean, you hear about I think it's the red pill community. We've touched on that in the past, and men having difficulties finding women. And you have all of these situations in which people have reasons to be unhappy. And I just think there's so many more factors to contend with when you think about the idea of getting an education and what does that look like, the idea of economic advancement and what does it take for that to happen, and then what does that mean with regard to the opposite sex and attracting that that right person. I was listening to I don't know where I heard it, but it said that of all of the intimate relationships you have in your life, your spouse is the only one you can choose. So choose wisely. So if you think about it, that's really profound. It's so simple. We don't choose our parents. We don't choose our children, but we can choose our spouse. And so putting ourselves in a position to make sure we attract the right person is important as well. So going back to the whole habit stacking idea is I want to drill down so specifically on the things that are less important in my life so I can have the mental capacity to find time and space to continue to advance myself, so that, and if men who are single apply those same principles, then they put themselves in a better position to have more choices, because the higher you go up the economic ladder, the more opportunities you get. That's just the fact. And so, if you happen to be a good looking person and you have the money and the career or the business that goes with it, now, you can pick anybody you want. And so unfortunately, there's so many people that don't necessarily have the looks and don't necessarily also have the work ethic to put themselves in a position to have the economic prosperity, where now they're just feeling stuck, because now, you're competing not only against reality, you're competing against this perceived reality, which is so fake that people put themselves out there on social media and they think that's the reality. And that what begins to happen is that women compare men to these idealistic aspects of who men are, and men do the same with women. And the unfortunate reality is that we both, men and women, need to have a better sense and have better sense of self to know what your range is. Like for me, I knew when I was looking for a wife, I was probably going to find her in college. And I even did the math when I was in high school. I said, okay, I'm going to a college that has 10,000 students. Of those 10,000 students, there's probably 800 women that fit the criteria that I'm looking for. The look, the values and all of those. Okay. So out of the 800, there's probably, 1 to 200 that, are a 7 or above. And there's probably out of there 20 to 30 that I'm going to be compatible with. I'm going to find one. I know I bring enough to the table. And that's what happened with me, and next year we'll be married 30 years. So, but a lot of times people don't have that degree of clarity and understanding. I knew that by the time I met my wife and we decided to get married, that I wanted to see the best in her and the worst in her. And I wanted her to see that in me. And so once we decided, okay, I've spent enough time where all of the fake niceties are out of the door. You're yourself around each other, and I show her my bad side and my good side and vice versa. We can live with that. We're good. And that was my recipe. And it's worked out so far.
Let me ask you this way, just frame it this way as I'm listening to you. And by the way, that's truly the work of an academic at heart. Like no man or woman could calculate that scientifically the way you just described that without being academic at heart. I'm sorry, my brain melted down at a nuclear level 5 times as you told me that, because I'm like going, I have no patience to do that type of academic work. To me, I'm like going, I already thought of 3 different entrepreneurial concepts already, and I'm going, and that's the good thing about it, right? That's the good thing about it, as you if you're open to the idea and you're honest with yourself, and you're like, I'm not going to be uncomfortable being comfortable. You're like, yeah, I realize that while I might admire that and might go, dang, I would love to be like that, I'll never be like that, because if I tried to be like that, it would be boring for me.
We are who we
because
are, man.
I just have to constantly be thinking. I thought of an idea, Len. I got to tell you about it offline. But I think it's genius. I think I've struck gold, and I'm like, I can't wait to tell someone about it. And I'm like, no one here's impressed. By the way, nobody here. It's a travesty. These kids are looking at me like I'm crazy. I'm going to tell you this thing, Len, and you're going to blow. Your eyeballs are going to blow out of your head. I'm telling you. But at any rate, I want to digress too far.
Looking forward to it.
I can't wait to tell you. Just remember, if I forget, please, I wonder if you could do me a favor and remind me.
I'm going to write it down to remind myself. Yeah.
I love it. So as you're sitting here and I'm talking about this, gentlemen, I want to put it back on you, because we were talking about earlier. And then we'll kind of go into the first thing at hand here, what's going on, because I think it'll tie in. But I think you got to maybe look at it this way. I mean, most men, they want a baddie, right? They just do. I mean, let's be honest, men, you want a baddie. You want a bat, bamboo earrings, a pair, take 2. You know what I'm talking about, right, Len? That's what most men are trying to look for, right? And the reality is that when I was in the business of recruiting heavily and recruiting a lot of people, always in the back of my mind, it was always the thought of going, this is a long, drawn out process. And you got to really, really, really step up your game. And as you start to recruit people, you start to realize that the process becomes way more ardent and I'm saying that right? Argent or ardent, right? Becomes
arduous. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, it becomes more difficult. And strenuous
arduous.
And agonist, right? Mm-hmm. Arduous, right? The moment you start to realize that you're not asking yourself the right question. And the right question always is, why would anybody want to join my team? Why would anybody want to work with me? Why do people, why would people want to follow me? Why would people want to be my client? Why? And start asking the question. And then all of a sudden your brain starts to go into this, as a man anyways, for me, in my perspective, in business, it starts to go into this, in anything. It doesn't even have to be business. It can be relationships. It starts to go, holy crap. What can I do to get better and increase my value? Right? And because you brought that up earlier, value. What can I do to increase my value? And since we're specifically talking about a man getting a baddie, right? Or getting a good girl or a good wife or a good girlfriend, or whatever it is that you're desiring, because that's such a huge thing today for a lot of men. Why would they want to date you? Because men are so obsessed right now. What do you bring to the table? And they should be asking that question, obviously. But then in the back of my mind, as a hunter, as a performer, as a producer, as a builder, as a look, man, if you don't get up in the morning and you don't have this, right? Regardless if you're an aggressive man or a non-aggressive man, I'm not. I am not an aggressive male, but I'm aggressive. I don't present aggression in the normal.
You have testosterone, so therefore,
if you don't get up in the morning,
aggression,
and have this insatiable hunger to just hunt, kill, just build, attack, or get after something, then something's wrong with you. And you need to really actually think about like what you're building for yourself, or what you think how you value yourself. Because every day you can get up, and for men who are transitioning in life and getting older, you got to go through changes, right? What are you doing to, number one, be a man of value to get the baddie you want, and then keep the baddie? Because both you and I have baddies. We do. We acknowledge that. But we also understand every single day that we get up and we go, all right, cool. What are we doing to drive the goalpost? What are we doing to get better? What are we doing to improve? Because men, it is your job to stay ahead of the curve.
I agree.
And women, if you want everything you want, then you'll find a man like that. And then not only will you find a man like that, you will go, okay, what can I do to make this dude even better? And what can I do to drive this man? And what can I do to give this man my loyalty? And what can I do to support this man, ride or die? That's it. And when you get that type of relationship, it's game over. But men, we got to step our game up too, and stop making excuses and lead, and just lead. That's it. And that's really, I think, would solve a lot of the problems. And I think that I'm very impressed, though, with Gen Alphas and these young kids, because my kids in that age group, and we've talked about this, they have access to a lot of information, but a lot of the stuff they look at, they go, no way, and they have a heart for nostalgia. They have a heart for nostalgia, which means I'm not worried about the right types of traditions, not dogma style traditions, the right type of traditions changing, because traditions have to change as the world gets older. I read this interesting thing, and I'll throw it back over to you because I have a question for you going into this next topic, unless you want to elaborate on that as a throwback to you. But it showed the evolution of the English language from all the way down to like medieval English to Middle English to King James English to today's English, and how English has evolved so crazily. And the reason why, we were saying, why did it change so much? And there's like 4 different key reasons on why language changes. And English changes. It's fascinating why English has changed so dramatically. And it has a lot to do with, obviously use, the way the world is, the way things are pronounced, dialects. So it's just fascinating. But if English had not evolved the way it had, we wouldn't be able to operate the world the way we have, the way we do. And that goes for most languages. For example, I didn't know this. I'm not an academic like you, Len. But I didn't realize that why English doesn't have a formal a gender definition like say Spanish or German, because it evolved out of that. And I've never even realized that. I never knew that. But speaking of which, This is a big topic for a lot of people right now, and it's the affordability thing. But here's the conundrum. This didn't happen until recently, but inflation actually went down 2.7%. That happened after you and I talked in preparation for today. But that still doesn't change the fact, obviously, and that maybe can put some hot water on this. California, which is notoriously the highest tax state, the most expensive state for utilities, taxes, you name it, a lot, is broke. Again, facing its second or third straight year of deficit in the 20 billion plus range. It is teetering on the brink of recession. There's about 22 states right now that are actively in recession. If you look at the data, we probably have that graphic up there. But California is definitely leading the pack. Fifth largest economy in the world. It's touted. What is going on here? How is the state broke again? And how can we continue to, like you said, invest in these ideals that we're taught to do, but then we don't get back, meaning a prosperous way to buy a house, get a good job, live in a nice neighborhood, and not get taxed to death. And that's really what you're starting to see in California. It's crumbling under the load of fiscal mismanagement. I just can't see it happening any other way. Len, where are you at with this? It's pretty big to run that long a deficit.
Yeah, it really hurts me to talk about California in this way, considering the fact that I've lived here in my entire life. When you look at politically motivated policies and you have such a large population, those two don't work at scale. So what do I mean by that is I can have some politically motivated policies, but if I'm in Rhode Island, no big deal because our population isn't that big. It isn't, so large at scale that we can manage it. And one thing that Gavin Newsom talks about, as you mentioned before in the prelude to your question was, California does have the fifth largest economy. It has 40 million people. It has some of the highest income in the country. Those are all positive things. But the problem is you have a significant percentage of the population that relies on Medi-Cal. And so that's a huge expense when you look at the cost of housing. The median cost for a house is over $600,000. And so when you look at the price for education, right now per pupil expenditure, which is the amount of money it costs on average for a kid to go to a public school, is over $10,000. So when you add all of those things up, education, and then you also look at initiatives on reducing homelessness, and then you look at the fact that a large percentage of the high-end tax base is leaving to states like yours in Texas, all of these variables converge to become this perfect storm, which means that California is in a deficit. There was a lot of money that came in from the federal government during COVID. And so what happened is it increased spending for these different types of programs. And then when that money was taken back because there's no COVID anymore, the spending train and the gravy train just kept going. And now we're in this situation where we're running $17 to $18 billion deficit just here in California. And so I could point to, say it's the governor. I could point to say it's entitlement programs. I could point to say it's education. I could point to say it's homelessness as one factor, but it's the combination of all of those things. And then also people feeling like the state is supposed to be there to give them a teat to suck on, to take care of them, where you have to understand that in order for me to have a degree of success, I've got to get away from having to rely on the system to take care of me. And that's the reason why I think California, unless somebody comes in and makes some radical changes, it's going to teeter on the brink of, like you talked about, a recession. And right now, Gavin Newsom is getting ready to term out of office. And so I hope the next governor comes in and understands a couple of things. One, we need a higher supply of housing. So the cost per unit of housing goes down. We need a lot more lower income housing. So like in the $200,000 to $300,000 range. And then when you look at interest rates, hopefully because of what's going on in the economy, interest rates start to come back down, which can increase people to buy homes. Therefore, more people come back to California. Therefore, more construction starts to happen. And then we also have to really be very clear about legislation with regard to the homeless. And if somebody doesn't have a clear multi-step plan, and also come with the idea of saying, look, I'm telling you that in order for us to fix this problem, that we're going to have to suffer a bit, because you can't have your cake and eat it too and be prosperous and be in a surplus. Those things just don't coincide. So the unfortunate reality, and I'll wrap up on this point. The unfortunate reality is this: people who don't feel the pain directly, they don't use empathy in their voting practices. So in other words, if I don't feel the impact of homelessness because I live 60 miles east of Los Angeles, I'm not really worried about homelessness because I don't really see it on a regular basis. I see it on TV, but I don't really see it. And when I say I'm not talking about me in particular. I'm just speaking of the general person who doesn't see anything from a first person perspective. And so I hope that we start to operate and understand that we've got to fix this problem. Otherwise, California is just going to get worse and worse and more economic hardships.
It's difficult to sit and realize, or try to understand it. And unfortunately, the problem obviously is the legislator. I mean, it's not going to stop with Gavin Newsom, and any governor that gets in there is going to have such an, it's an impossible time trying to get anything done in that state. I mean, it's just, but I mean, do you really think it has to get a little bit more painful there for the voting bloc to change? Because California was once a Republican state, or a red state, or a fiscally conservative state.
It still is, geographically speaking. I mean, if you look at it by landmass,
you mean like by landmass, but obviously population density in the metros is what
is very blue, no doubt.
Right. But it's interesting because we saw it flip. I mean, Florida used to be a Democratic state, or a more more left leaning state. Mm-hmm. And now that thing has flipped, in one way. So
very blue. Yeah.
It was blue and now it's red, and it's like what is going on?
Right? I mean, yes. Mm-hmm.
Right. It's the exact opposite. And California did it. Yeah. So maybe it can change, but it's going to take a while to change that. And I think there's got to be a lot more pain. States, what is it? I mean, and it's not, California's teetering, Nevada's teetering, Colorado's teetering, New Mexico, Arkansas, Missouri, Tennessee, Ohio, New York, Vermont. And states that are already actively in recession now, or Oregon, Washington, no surprise there. Montana, Wyoming, Kansas, South Dakota, Minnesota, Iowa, Illinois, no shock there. Mississippi, Georgia, those states never really recovered, ever have recovered since post-Civil War era. They've kind of always been down there. Louisiana, though, surprisingly, is not. Louisiana is on the so states that are growing: Idaho, Utah, Arizona, no doubt about that. Texas, Oklahoma, Nebraska, North Dakota, Wisconsin, Indiana, Kentucky, Alabama, Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, Pennsylvania. Len, are you proud that I knew all those just by looking at the abbreviations and not actually even seeing the names underneath them?
That's impressive, man. That's impressive.
Let me ask you this question before we transition. Does that give the United States its strength and resilience? Is that one of the things? Because you have so many different economies coming together, whereas like a Germany or a France or a UK or whatever, or Spain, because a lot of those European countries are struggling right now financially. or economically, does that give the United States an edge a little bit, having resilience in it? I mean, it's under our federal, obviously, but you still have all those micro economic centers or micro, economies within those states. And even though California may be, teetering on recession, which is crazy, they have the most explosive still commerce base in that Silicon Valley, especially with the AI boom in 2025. It's like, how can they be broke? So
right. And that blows my mind, because the answer to your first question is, when you look at the United States and you look at how large it is and how you have all of these different economic centers. So like in California, you've got Silicon Valley and the tech boom, but you also have California is also considered the breadbasket of the United States. When you look at Kern County and all of those lush, fertile areas, there's a lot of agriculture that's grown there. And so then when you look at more of your southern states, you've got a lot of different industries that are completely different than the northern states. And so with all
of oil and gas
economic variations, when you look at the southern states like Texas, Oklahoma, and that area, a lot of oil money there. But then when you look more on the northern states, you still have more of your textiles and still the last vestiges of manufacturing. And then also in the middle, you've got a lot of farming and, large farm communities as well. So, because of all of that variation, I think that's what makes the United States economically viable, because we continue to export goods and services and all of those things. I mean, mostly goods. And then we also export services and entertainment and things like that. But California, there's no reason, given the huge economy it has, that it should be in a recession. It's just so many areas of mismanagement, quite frankly.
So speaking of, entertainment, obviously Hollywood once was entertainment. I mean, it's interesting to see how that has completely evaporated. And I would have never have thought that, that the entertainment industry would morph the way it has. I remember having a conversation with a really good friend of mine at the time. We were really close at this time, at the season of life. And he had a business. And his business was low voltage and custom hi-fi entertainment systems in houses. And he was installing one for me in my house. It was like 2008. And I remember we were putting a Blu-ray player in. You remember Blu-ray disc?
I remember, right? Blu-ray.
It's like, oh my God, Blu-ray disc is going to be the game changer, baby. Everything's going to change with Blu-ray. Like, it's done,
it was
right?
A blip on the radar.
Boom, right? It really was, right? And I remember him telling me at that time, he's like, dude, this isn't even going to be around anymore because everything's going to be streamed. And I went, you really think it's going that way, right? And he's like, yeah, I really think so. And I went, yeah, man, that's crazy to think. And to think that was 2008, right? I looked up a sign from like 1999, 2000 of Netflix's original webpage. It's so funny. We got to put that. It's so funny looking, right? It's crazy to see that, right? And to see that evolve and that change. And now to see Netflix is the juggernaut of the media world, right? Killing everybody. And now they won the bid, right? To buy Paramount, not the TV stuff, but just Paramount. Or sorry, not Paramount. Sorry, Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers, right? Not Paramount. They're fighting with Paramount because now Paramount came back with a bigger offer for 100. And that to me makes more sense. But then also the issue with that is that Paramount's offering more, but then that gives a lot of control to one specific family who owns a lot of media assets. And I don't know if that's really a big concern because they're legacy outlets, but Netflix wants to buy Warner, and there's media consolidation happening at a massive scale. Where are you at with seeing this right now? Do you think it's going to be Netflix or Paramount in the end who's going to be able to accept that or be even allowed? Because at this point, Warner Brothers already said yes to Netflix, but now Paramount throws this in there and the government's going to meddle with it because antitrust stuff. But where are you at with it?
Okay, so it's very interesting when you talk about Netflix, because Netflix was almost, they were asking to be bought by Blockbuster, right? Just imagine how history would have changed if Blockbuster would have purchased Netflix.
Wow.
But anyway, okay, so this is how I see things. Netflix is very much a data-driven company. They look at the amount of views. They look at how long a person views each movie, and they look at the types of movies individuals like, and they create these algorithms that stream to get me to watch it more often. Paramount is more of a legacy media company. And so the problem, what I see, I believe that Netflix is going to win out because they're the only company that really has, if you look at their revenues, they have some of the best revenues in the entire industry. One of the reasons why Warner Brothers went out of business is because they acquired a lot of debt when debt was at 0%. But then when debt went up to 5, 6, 7%, they can't stay viable. They can't stay profitable anymore. So they had to get rid of a lot of shows. And really what's happening right now, Chris, is you've got legacy media colliding with non-traditional media and this whole consolidation of culture, if you think about it, because culture is created based on what we see and what we see on TV, what we see people wearing, how they're talking, and all of these things. And so with Netflix, I believe that they're going to be the 800-pound gorilla that everybody's going to be scared of if they continue to consolidate. Because, you've got ESPN, you've got all of these large companies that are going to be consolidated in this purchase, because before, remember, the big acquisition was when AT&T and Warner Brothers got, in bed together, and they made that big, multi-billion-dollar deal. So I think at the end of the day, I think Netflix is going to end up winning. I don't think Paramount can compete just because they don't really have a firm connection on where media is going, because more and more people are watching and being entertained, but fewer and fewer people are watching your traditional linear TV style. And so because of that, I believe there will be a day where everything's going to be streamed, and it's all I don't think you're going to have where, this particular time, with the exception of news and sports. So the Olympics, football, basketball, soccer, and all of those things, because we want to see live events, but everything else we'll be able to stream. And I think legacy media is going to go out the window. So I think that trajectory aligns a lot more closely to Netflix. What are your thoughts?
Well, the cool thing and the bad thing is that everyone's a journalist and everyone has opinion today. They could be broadcast everywhere, us included. Right?
That's right.
So the town square is really still the town square. It's just gotten bigger, meaning everyone can go to the town square simultaneously, right? Imagine if we had everyone that had access and knew how to use streaming, like Zoom or Google Meet or any of these, and we just set up one meeting link and everyone got that knew how to use, got all on the same time and had there was 5 billion slots available. We'd crash the internet, right? We'd kill it. We'd destroy the infrastructure. But wouldn't that be something to see something like that happen, right? I mean, the thing about it is the thing about it is entertainment. I think entertainment is absolutely going to change. I mean, stuff is so on demand now, and what people want really is they want authentic, as close to authentic as possible. The closer they can get to it, that's what they want. Mm-hmm. And they want to feel that. They want to feel that original authenticity. And I think that's exactly what on-demand streaming media, stuff like this is giving us. And there's no way to fight that. There's just simply no way to fight it. Interestingly enough, they're paying so much money for this. And I don't even think it's going to be that big of a deal. I mean, if history always shows, it's if you're looking at it from an investment standpoint, I guess the big acquisitions never end up being the big paydays. Or the big monumental shifts and changes, right? And in the world, it's usually the small, few million dollar acquisitions where somebody pays like a couple $100,000 or $1 million for something, and then all of a sudden, bam, right? It blows up. That's really the thing behind, the magic success. I don't think anything's going to happen. I think it's just going to become convoluted, just like Time Warner did, right? AOL, Time Warner, and then it's just going to have its sad, long, grotesque death of legacy. Just let it die, but the what is it? The Larry Ellison, the Ellison family, right? They own CBS or something, and if this happens, they might own CNN at the same time. So that's two, and the New York Times or something to that effect. But I don't think anybody really cares because I don't think anybody reads that stuff anyways or watches that stuff anyways anymore.
That's true.
So that's why it's like, why are they paying? Because that's Paramount's thing. Is like, oh, we'll buy Netflix doesn't want that stuff. They don't want the TV stuff, the legacy stuff. They don't want that. They want the streaming stuff. Paramount's like, oh, we'll take the garbage. And that ends up, if Paramount wins it and the government softball pitches it to Paramount, don't be surprised that Netflix buys Paramount a few years after.
And see, that's the problem because
the government is going to make the problem happen because Netflix is an innovator. Microsoft is look at this. Look at these killer companies that the government has always tried to attack. The government tried to kill Microsoft so many times. Look at this. Microsoft adapted. Microsoft changed the business models. Cool. And it ended up getting to become the behemoth that it is now today, regardless of all the stuff that they tried to do. So, absolutely. And banks, however, they have an interesting life. Banks get propped up by the government more than any other institution. The free market doesn't exist. So I don't want to get off into the weeds here, but yeah, it's good. If Paramount succeeds in this, and I think they'd be stupid for them to do it. It'd be death. It's death by 1,000 knives because they will be nobody wants to dig the grave afterwards.
That's right.
And they will dig the grave for legacy, the death of one of the largest legacy baskets of media conglomerates. They will have to they will have to be the hospice nurse, so to speak.
That's right.
And no one wants to do that. It takes a special person to go broke doing that emotionally, financially, physically, all of that stuff. So at any rate,
all of that stuff is so interesting to me. And I just think when we talk about what are different ways to capture people's attention, Netflix is the most dialed in. But what's interesting though is that news is always going to be news. If it bleeds, it leads. And so I think what ends up happening is news, like I mentioned before, news and sports will still be in high demand. And speaking of news, man, there's so many new developments that have been happening. The latest we talked before about the whole shooting at Brown. And did you know that the guy who did the killing also killed another professor over at MIT within that same time span?
Yeah, they were linked. And then you saw the one that happened just a couple of days ago or yesterday in South Africa. There was another shooting in South Africa. So it's like, and then the Bondi Beach shooting, the Brown shooting, the MIT one's linked to the Brown shooting. It's almost like, most people, we don't have mass shootings or we don't have shootings outside the United States, but it's like you're starting to see a lot of this happen. And Australia has one of the strictest gun control zones. I haven't looked up South Africa yet. I just literally just seen it. And I'm like, whoa, like I don't know if Len knows this or not, but what, and again, I can't help but, I think the Bondi Beach shooting is being classified as a hate crime. Is that, am I right?
I don't know all of the specific details just yet.
I think the problem though is what you're seeing is you're obviously it's the holidays too. I mean, I don't know if that people get a little weird, but you're starting to see that frustration, the tension everywhere, and people are feeling it. And then of course this is so stupid. And this is the so stupidest thing. If you don't have enough to be pissed off about over the weekend, the Department of Justice starts hiding files that are released previously for the Epstein stuff. Oh, and then they put out this horse shit of, for the safety of something. It's always the safety crap.
You redact, and it's like 117 pages.
Oh, dude. I'm like,
completely redacted.
And I'm sitting here and I'm going, Trump,
it's
please.
A joke.
Trump, please, for the love of God, you're my, I like, Trump, please, I'm rooting for you. And I'm in your camp like 90% still, like 80%, even though Len hates that. And I'm like, if I was an advisor,
he's taking L's, man.
because I can take a lot from people. You can too, Len. Wink, wink. You can take a lot. In a good way. In a good way. I'm thankful for it. But yeah. I'd have to come into the Oval Office and say, bro, I got some KFC, some McDonald's, and a 2-liter Coca-Cola. We're hashing this out right now, dude.
Right. No doubt.
And he'd say, well, Chris, this is what's going on in my brain. No, bro. Like, seriously, you can't play peekaboo with this shit because I'm one of the loyal guys in the base. And I'm like, bro, stop, dude. You're making it. And again, I have to say this with a little bit of ignorance because I don't know if it's that sinister of strategic or it's that good of strategy. Like, the strategy is so good that I can't see the reason why you would make this mistake. But it's like, and now Bondi, they're threatening to hold Bondi in contempt, which is bullshit anyways. I mean, the congressional contempts and all that, they're going to hold him in contempt. That's nothing anyways. There's no legs or teeth of that anyways. Mm-hmm. I'm more excited, by the way, about Elon Musk reaching $750 billion net worth over the weekend.
That's crazy. But
he's going to make it to $1 trillion before he even gets the pay package. And he's going to laugh his you-know-what off at all those people that, he needs the pay package. But you can't help but think about it this way. Look, Kevin O'Leary said it like a year ago, right before or maybe 9 months ago, before he shifted right back out of politics and back into business. He said, I've never seen a guy that has the signal that Elon Musk has. And all of a sudden, Elon goes, what you saw. What type of warm-up time did he have from leaving politics to being back on fire? Because you can't say it wasn't, you can't say that it's not his signal being present as an executive and a CEO and his business concerns that are causing that net worth to climb. So what is it? What was his warm-up time?
Look, he was just in the White
90
House
days
in January. It's December, but he was out of the White House in March or April or something like that. Don't quote me on the specific time. I'm just conjecturing. But okay, so you look at probably 6 or 7 months, he's right back on it. And so, I want to go back. I have a question though, because you talked about just your frustration, and I definitely consider you as a person who's part of the Trump base. Do you think the Epstein files will be a pen in the coffin, or do you think it'll for the loyalty? Because how, as we talked offline, what JD Vance is up against is if Trump continues to have all of these fumbles, if you will, and he continues to lose credibility in his base, that's going to be very difficult for JD Vance, because as the presumptive 2028 nominee, I don't know if I sent a couple of screenshots I took, and it said JD Vance is like 11%, of all the people who said that they looked for somebody in the 2028 elections. And that particular polling, I think, was something like 11% said that he would be the presumptive nominee, and he was the highest amongst the colleagues that he had. Did I send that to you or no?
I didn't get it, but while you look at that, let me answer the question, because I don't want to forget, because I want to unpack. I don't want to lose it. I don't think it's going to be a linchpin or a nail in the coffin. What I think it's going to be, if they don't fix it and come straight out with it and just own it, is it's going to be a slow affliction. It's going to be a slow. I didn't see that. It's going to be a slow death of poison. It's going to be a slow affliction. It's going to slowly kill them. And The only thing I can tell you right now, and it's just my gut, is I'm sitting here and I'm looking at this and I'm going, it's making it way too easy for Ron DeSantis to come in. And here's why. Because Ron DeSantis is going to give you all the things you like about Trump, but he's going to give you all the things that you want, Len, which is the cool, the calm, the collected, the polished, the candor. You're going to get all that. And he is going to bring down that balance that you're not seeing right now. And I wouldn't be surprised if that base goes. It's kind of almost like, if you remember this because you're old enough to remember this, the Colin Powell moment when everyone saw Colin Powell speak at the Republican National Committee when Bush was running and went, "Oh my God, we got the wrong guy. We got the wrong guy. It should have been Colin Powell." If the Republican Party was not selfish and allowed Colin Powell to be the RNC nominee, game over, baby.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
But see, there's a difference though between wanting it and needing to do it, and he needed to do it. He was a Teddy Roosevelt. He was a guy that needed to get in there. That guy was like that guy right there, a Colin Powell presidency,
right experience.
Boom!
Credibility, trust.
There would have been no ego. Look, I love Obama, but Obama had too much ego, and that was his thing. He had too much of that ego, and Michelle didn't polish it off a little bit of him. I
want to jump in real quickly because you mentioned something about DeSantis. So
yes.
It said anyone you'd like to see run for president in 2028. This was a poll. It was done by CNN, and it said Ron DeSantis 2%. It says Marco Rubio 4%. JD Vance 22%. I said 11%. Okay. And it had no one specific in mind 64%. That's on the Republican side.
That gives you an idea right now.
Now check this out. It's even worse for the Democratic side. On the Democratic side, it was 2% Buttigieg, 4% ACO.
AOC?
AOC, yeah. AOC. 5%,
What was her number?
4%.
Okay.
And then 5% Kamala Harris, 11% Gavin Newsom, and 64% no one specific in mind.
Here's interesting, Len. AOC
11%.
AOC called out JD Vance and said she would whoop his you-know-what, and she's getting 4% in her own base, and JD gets 20% plus in his base? Bro, get out of here with that crap,
Math
dude.
is not mathing.
The math is not mathing anymore. I can't even believe that Kamala Harris beats AOC, but I can. You know why?
She was the nominee before.
Right. She still got
the fact that she's only 5% and she was the nominee is very, very telling as well. Right? Do you think about that? Yeah. A person who garnered 70 million votes, and yet you're only 5% of the one who's saying, okay, in the future, we want you to be that person. The top person's at 11%. Democratic
Party, and it's not even
is
her.
Cooked. Exactly. Yeah.
So I don't know. I think this opens the door for. I know he's polling low on that on 2. I'm shocked. I am so shocked. Maybe it's because I'm libertarian leaning and Ron DeSantis is. I don't know. I'm very shocked that Ron DeSantis is not higher on that thing. I'm not surprised with JD Vance because JD Vance, I think he's young, he's sharp, and he gets across the young voters. So I'd be interesting to poll those two guys, the two tops, and on both. You know what I mean? Cross poll those guys.
Yes, I agree.
And see how they
gotten
poll.
a bump because of the whole. What was it? Turning Point USA, because
he was on there
got
recently.
An endorsement. He also got Erica Kirk's endorsement too. So who knows what degree that carried weight.
He handled it real well. I don't know if you saw it. He was just there. He handled the speeches and his his engagements with the TPUSA crowd at the convention, over the weekend and everything, very, very well. He handled that very well. MAGA defending the base, all that stuff. So. Look,
he's
JD
smart,
Vance,
he's well spoken. He can.
JD Vance could win it. He could win it. He could win it. He could win it.
I just don't think people trust him. That's the thing. I just don't, because that's my issue right now. And again, send me whatever you have. I'm willing to give the guy a shot to at least listen to him in long form discuss policy.
I'm torn between JD Vance and DeSantis. I'm torn between those two. I just don't know who yet. I just don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know who I want to favor yet, and I don't know if either of them would be a VP for each other.
No, there's no way. You're not getting both of those on the same ticket. That's just not going to happen.
So do you need a balance? You need a balance then? But see, I don't know. It's weird. It's
the
weird.
vice presidential nominee, it's just like, okay, I don't know to what degree you follow sports, but you can't have a superstar as your backup quarterback. That's just not how it works.
No.
Because then if your star quarterback starts to have challenges, then the crowd's going to call for the backup. And then it just creates turmoil in the locker room, turmoil in your fan base. It's just not good. So the presumptive presidential nominee has to be a charismatic alpha. And then the presumptive vice presidential nominee needs to be a beta, needs to be a second in command. Because think about it, if you look at
neither of them are beta, neither of them.
No, neither of them. And there's not too many VPs that successfully became presidents. You don't see it that often. Most of them just kind of fade.
Joe Biden did it.
Yeah, but he wasn't considered successful.
That came from you. They are sending the DNC to your house right now. They're coming for you right now.
Hey, and they're coming to the wrong house, man. I'm not a Democrat, so.
Hey, speaking of DC, what is going on? Because we've talked about this, and DC crime statistics are up in the air now because they could be fake. As she retired, such a fiery, emotional speech she gave, her exit speech. That wasn't an exit speech. That was her defending herself, right? And she had to go so flary with it. I don't know if you watched it. I watched it yesterday. It was embarrassment. An embarrassment. She gets caught with a toxic work environment, yet alone that's not even the biggest problem. She faking the statistics by telling her chain of command to debase the criminal rating of crimes committed in DC. And if you didn't, she ran it like Lucy Liu did in Kill Bill. You remember that scene? I don't know if you ever watched Kill Bill, but she's a samurai leader, and she gets up and chops that dude's head off and goes, BAM! Now we know why people get killed in DC, but they don't get killed in DC. On paper, they don't get killed in DC, but in the streets, they get killed.
Well,
Len.
My guess, I don't know how specifically she sparsed the crime statistics. I don't think she's going to say that someone...
We'll never know, just like Epstein. We'll never know, just like Epstein files. We'll never know the breadth
There's
and
going to
domain
be an investigation, though, so we may in fact know. So here's the issue that I have with that whole situation. When you have a member of an entity that is supposed to be trusted by the citizens, and you violate that trust on something as sacred as that, if she's responsible for that, because right now it's an allegation. Now, and if you were to ask me and put a gun to my head and say, oh, do you think she was guilty or not? I'm probably leaning to the fact that she was more likely to have done it than not, just because of all of the different people that came forward and say, yeah, there was a very high pressure situation for me to fudge the numbers here and there. And it wasn't by one person, allegedly. It was allegedly by a lot of people internally. So when you have a person who is supposed to be a public figure trusted by the citizens, and you misrepresent information as important as crime statistics, you potentially impact the lives and the livelihoods of people who live within those locations. Because yes, you may invite more people to come and visit because they think it's safe. But then if you've got more crime than what's being reported, people that come aren't exercising the level of vigilance they need to. I'd rather know there's a danger that's present, then believe there's no danger and it actually exists. Because, when I go to places throughout the world that have higher rates of crime, I make sure the way I dress, is not flashy. I have my money in my front pocket or, in a close proximity that's, close to my person. I know the people that I'm around, that they're safe and that, I know all the exits and all of those things. Like I put myself in a position to be aware that these things do happen. And so if I go and I'm like, oh, there's no crime here, or the crime is down significantly because they're doing such a bang up job, I'm not going to be as vigilant. And imagine somebody who comes and they don't think strategically like I do as a provider and a protector, then they put themselves in danger. And when you do something that's politically motivated, or that goes against someone in which you disagree, because I think part of it was to make herself look good. And also the other part was to make Trump look bad. And both of those are the wrong motivations to take information and fudge it and lie about it because of the serious nature of it. Like there's other crimes and other lies that people say that don't necessarily directly impact the citizenry, like paper trails on, bank statements. That's not going to impact me, but crime statistics and lying about that could get my family killed. And so I really have an issue, on so many different levels about what she allegedly did. Now, obviously, you're innocent until proven guilty, but we're not dumb, right? So I'm going to reframe judgment to, just to pound on her. But if what she said is true, it's not a good look, man. It's not a good look at all.
Here's what I'm beginning to realize right now. I'm beginning to realize that the people that we are believing in are giving you and I too many gotchas. Do you understand what I mean by that?
Absolutely.
And what I mean by
Epstein files we talked about, all these different fake news and stuff like that.
I'm behind Trump, and yet he's giving you so many gotchas to come at me, and you're behind. You're. I'm not saying you're behind, but you're trusting that in that system, wherever, and now they're giving me gotchas for you, and it's like, obviously you and I don't care about it as far as we're not mad at each other. We're not going to have resentment towards each other because we're able to understand and articulate the fact that, bro, there's no emotional attachment. Hey man, your guy sucks. Yeah, well, you know what? Your guy sucks too. Well, you know what? Hopefully they stop sucking so that we can start doing better and not having to have to come work harder. Not because we have to work harder, but work harder because we have to get around all the sucky shit that they do. And that's one of them.
The lies they put out there.
The lies. And that's one of them. Because, again, because those crime stats are faked, we don't have an accurate understanding of why the budget has to be so high. Because we would understand the crime stats low. Why do we need to spend more money here? It's exactly what's happening in the education system, specifically California. We spend more money per kid, but yet we have shittier outcomes. How does that work? Those people are in the same exact boat. And whether they have evidence on them or not, which they don't, clearly there's enough evidence on both a state, or not state, but local level and a congressional level and a federal level, whatever the two places that investigated the DC police chief, right? Mm-hmm. There's enough evidence there to prompt that and for her to resign very quickly. I want to spend more time with my kids and my family, right? But I'm not saying that there is the same exact thing, but it casts the same type of light on the wine gardens of the world. I'm pronouncing her name wrong, but the secretary of, or whatever, not secretary, but the teachers union president, that lady who's wacky tobacco all the time, right?
Yeah.
It sheds the same type of thing, because if you're so ultra realistic and you're so smart and you're doing such a good job, why the numbers in such a shitter then?
No doubt.
And then that leaves people that are less informed than maybe people who are more informed to go, oh, see those other countries, they have such a better education system. They should just do it more like them instead of the way we do it in America. Wrong. It's not an American problem. It's these bureaucrats that are acting like the other people in these countries called monarchs and aristocrats. That's the problem. The problem is that people in America today, even myself included, need to pick up some more books and read some more, specifically history. Because then we probably maybe have more empathy and understanding of what's going on right now and going, holy crap. Mm-hmm. But see, we're so distracted with our TikTok feed and our Instagram feed and all this other stuff and climate change, and it's so expensive, and this person's going to war and this religious war. And can you believe they said that, rather than going, can I just pray for some peace right now to think about the things that matter most to me, that are going to reflect my life or the place I live, and just go for a walk?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And speaking of, protecting yourself and walking and being healthy, I know we had been talking about just how people over 40 can live healthier, because, obviously politics and current events are something that we discuss a lot because there's a lot happening in the world right now, and for you're a guy who's very much about taking care of your clientele, being in the financial space. And, so we definitely talk about things financial. It's easy to overlook the importance of living a healthy life. And ultimately, the one thing that all of us as human beings have in common is how we take care of our bodies is going to impact our longevity and our vitality. And so I know that you had sent me some things to talk about with regard to just over 40 lifestyles and different habits. What's on your mind in that area?
So I think it always triggers me not triggers me. I don't want to say that. Let me back that up. All the left-leaning people are going to go, oh my God, Chris Philp gets triggered. Right?
They're gonna start a Patreon and a GoFundMe and send you some money.
See, even that toxic masculinity, right? Whatever it is, like, how about some toxic femininity? Like, whenever I just am good at mirroring, right? If you throw that on me, I'm gonna throw it back at you. The thing that I want to say triggers, right? Let me back that up, erase that from the record, right? The thing that I always used to get stuck on, and I think a lot of us get stuck on, is we always think it's too late. We always think it's too late, right? Mm-hmm. And the thing is it's never too late until it's too late, right? So think about that or process that or chew on that any way you want, however that makes sense to anybody. But there are things that can be done. And I recently, I'm always researching this topic. I'm always trying to, no matter how much you think you know about, yourself or health or longevity or what you can do, you got to always constantly keep learning about it because things constantly keep changing. And I recently came across a lot of good information that I found very, that hit for me. And I don't necessarily think that it's like, well, if I was like, sometimes we go, I know this already, but sometimes we need to hear the same thing 5 to 7 times before we actually start to go, wait a minute, this is something I need to do. And that's so true of just making new habits. Since you brought that up, I think earlier today, you were talking about the power of atomic habits or the power of habit. Mm-hmm. And it really is, you need to hear something 5 to 7 times before you actually start to actually take action on it. But I just recently came across, I don't know, it was a few different points, but it was things, it was 10 habits or something along the line that you can start if you're in your 40s. So he's like, I'm in my 40s and I want to start doing something because I don't want to be in a walker when I'm in my 50s. I don't want to, I want to pay the price. So, it was just 10 points. I thought it was very interesting. And I could just rattle them off real quick, Len, and then we can have a conversation about them. But
okay, go for it.
Obviously, the biggest thing that I started paying attention to this a few years ago, really about, I'd say even more so in the last 12 months, maybe 18 months, was not just cardio training, but strength training. You've got to do some type of strength training because after the age of 30, you lose about 3 to 8% of your muscle mass per decade. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. And muscle mass now, I mean, yes, you have to be exercised, you have to be in shape, but muscle mass does so many things for you because, you're regulating blood sugars, you're regulating blood pressures, energy stores, mood, hormones, D3 production, absorption. So muscle strength in age, as you age, lean muscle strength is a good indicator of insulation for your body, or adaptability for your body, and longevity for your body. Morning people, just getting up in the morning, getting up early, and not necessarily like you're getting up like, getting up at 3:00, but you're getting up reliably and consistently without something waking you up at like 5:30, 6:00. Even on weekends. Yeah, I'm not saying you shouldn't have the every day, but and things like that are telling. Things like that are habitual, that especially for men. Even to go so far as deep hobbies, cultivating hobbies, you got to have outlets. Giving your mind something to learn about. Learning to say no without guilt is a great one. And I don't want to say meditation practices, but for some people who are not spiritual, maybe that's your form of spiritual believing. But you gotta dig in with your spiritual life more, I think, and rather than a meditation approach, because that is kind of meditation to me. Stop eating, a lot. Stop overindulging. If it cut out, eat until you're like 70 to 80% full. Eat slow, prioritize sleep over productivity. This was a huge one for me, because it's like, go. The badge of honor of, I worked 18 hours today. I worked 20 hours today. I'll sleep when I'm dead. You literally will. Mm-hmm. You literally will die, right? Sleep is massive, 7 to 8 hours religiously. And conclusive studies have shown that this is one of those big, a lot of longevity doctors will say that sleep is on the same level as exercise. Go figure. You keep learning new skills, and you maintain friendships intentionally, meaning you got to be proactive with your friendships. Don't rely on people to be proactive. And then address stress at the source. Look, you don't have time. Cut it out of your life. You're at a stage in your life where, you might be halfway there. Maybe you are halfway there. For most people, that's like a halfway point for them. Life is short anyways. You gotta prioritize that and, cut that crap out. So I think that was very telling, and that was a big piece of value for me. And that's why I shared it with you, because I know where I was talking about that, and I'm glad to share it here as well. If you haven't found it, just go Google search stuff, or don't even have your AI bot, train your AI bot to just do a sweep every day and say, find me the top nutritional longevity stuff, and tell it what you're asking for. For example, I had a couple chatbots do plan a whole vacation, logistics and all, to European countries. It's so time saving. You could have a chatbot say, "Hey, I'm trying to lose 20 pounds. Here's my height, weight, boom, 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 boom." And say, find me the best nutritional tips and stuff everywhere for this, and it'll gather that for you every single day. So use the technology, use what's out there, use your tools, and stay healthy. Because your health is your wealth. Because I don't care how nice your car is, or how nice your house is, or how big your bank is. If you have a chronic illness or a chronic disease, you don't care about anything but that. And that becomes 100% of your signal. It does. Yep. And I know we're going to Christmas, and there's a lot to be thankful for, Len, as we wrap up here today, which I can't even believe. I mean, our conversations are always like this, but and that's really, I think, the sign of a true is a good friend, is you could spend a lot of time with them and not even realize how long you spent with them. Because it's a true, honest, and open conversation. But I'm just happy to share that kind of stuff. But yeah. Christmas is coming. We're staying home. It's going to be a nice, calm one. I throw it back over to you, Len. Any last thoughts you have for today? You want to dive in on those longevity tips, or give us a word? Because you're in that space, and you see people get sick, and they can avoid a lot of that.
Exactly. So I want you, if you're watching this, and because like for me, the people I work with are typically like high net worth children of aging parents. And I will tell you, what I see over and over happen is that you have the son or daughter that lives in a different state than their parent or their parents, and one parent ends up passing away. So they're together, and they may not necessarily focus too much on their health, because maybe the husband relied on the wife to, fix meals, and maybe she doesn't know to, feed them grass-fed meat and foods and high fat and low carbs and high antioxidants and omega-3s and all of those things. Maybe you didn't get all that information. And so your dad may be the one left over, not knowing how to take care of himself. Or it may be the mom that I've noticed that is the surviving spouse, and the husband took care of all of the bills and took care of all of the insurances and all of the legacy planning and all of those things, and ran the household from a financial standpoint, and all of the mixtures in between. But the biggest thing that I see is that once a person is up in age, and especially when they're on their own, because they've lost one spouse and they don't have all of the other longevity hacks on their own, they pass away so quickly, especially when they're by themselves. And so it's really, really important to start taking what Chris just talked about, doing your own research for yourself. But then once you acquire those sets of habits for yourself, share it with your parents so they can begin to have those habits. And again, like he said, it's not too late until it's too late. So whether your parents are in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, or 90s, start having that conversation, because the body has a very unique way of healing itself when you put the right food into it and when you exercise. And so maybe it's starting off with 2-pound weights. Maybe it's no weight, but it's just getting movement. Maybe it's just, taking a chair and holding onto it and doing squats, but maybe not all the way down, but just a little bit where you're putting a little resistance. Maybe it's, holding onto something and lifting up one leg and then alternating between two legs, and then eventually holding on with one hand, and then eventually no hands, and being able to balance. Just one little baby step at a time, to eat the right foods, to put a little stress on your body with physical activity and exercise, and a little by little over time starts to add up. And even though you may have 2 sick parents, or maybe one of your parents passed away, you can keep your other parent because you've taught them ways to live longer. But if they're by themselves, the biggest thing they need is a companion, or somebody professional, or somebody that cares about them, to spend time with them, to feed them information, feed their mind, their body, and their spirit. And they'll live longer. And just, for me, the worst thing that I hate is seeing somebody pass away prematurely because of something they didn't know, because the information's all around us, but sometimes we don't know what we don't know, so we don't ask the questions. And so as we wrap up this year and as we wrap up this show, we just want you to know that we appreciate every single one of you out there. And we hope that by watching our show, that you're a little bit smarter now than you were a few minutes ago. And I hope that you understand the value of always acquiring new information and processing that information critically, and then sharing that. So with that, share, subscribe, comment. We definitely want to hear from you. And we hope that all is phenomenal closing out this year and starting out Q1 next year. So Chris, man, every time I have a blast with you, I always learn just by listening to you. Even though I don't always agree with you, I always get value from what you say. So it's always great. It's always a pleasure.
Likewise. Merry Christmas, Len. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Take care.
Conversation has given you clarity on your next steps. Please share this episode with someone who's walking the same path. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss future episodes. And remember, planning ahead isn't just prudent, it's an act of care. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on The Family Office.